The cross. Jesus stood before the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, and though many accusations were brought against him, he gave no answer. And eventually Pilate said, "I find no basis for a charge against him." But the voices of the chief priests and the elders grew stronger. When Pilate discovered that Jesus fell under the jurisdiction of King Herod and that he was in Jerusalem at the same time, he sent Jesus to him, hoping to shift the responsibility and avoid upsetting the Jewish leaders. Herod questioned Jesus at length, eager to see some miraculous sign, but Jesus gave no reply. The chief priests and teachers of the law stood there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers mocked him, dressed him in an elegant robe, and sent him back to Pilate. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, to hear his judgment. "You brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion, but I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, that's why he has sent him back to me." While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message. "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." It was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time they had a well-known prisoner, named Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. So Pilate asked them again, "Which of the two do you want me to release, Jesus or Barabbas?" And as if with one voice, they shouted Barabbas. Then Pilate replied, "Then what shall I do with Jesus who is called the Messiah?" And the crowd, incited by the Pharisees and leaders, shouted together, "Crucify him!" Pilate, not wishing to have Jesus put to death, but at the same time worried about his reputation, asked, "Why? What crime has he committed?" But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" So, wanting to satisfy the crowd for fear of his own position as governor, Pilate released Barabbas to them, and sent Jesus to be flogged, hoping that it would satisfy the crowd. The soldiers took Jesus away, and after being flogged in the most brutal way, they began to mock and spit on him. Then they clothed him in a purple robe and twisted together a crown of thorns, placing it on his head. Then, hardly able to stand after the flogging, they struck him and said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Pilate brought Jesus out again before the crowd and said, "Here is the man." But when the chief priests and the officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Again, Pilate answered them, "I find no basis for a charge against him." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the crowd kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Rome." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, and that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." And all the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." After Pilate had pronounced judgment, the soldiers took Jesus away. They removed the purple robe and put his own clothes back on him. And then they led him out to be crucified. At first, Jesus carried his own crossbar. But as they went along, Jesus was so weak he could no longer carry it, so they seized a man named Simon from Cyrene and forced him to carry the crossbar in place of Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wept. And looking up from his weary body, Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, "Do not weep for me, weep for yourselves and for your children." He said this because he knew what suffering was coming to the city in the future. They came to a place called Golgotha. There, they offered him wine mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. Then they crucified him and 2 others who were thieves. They drove nails through his wrists and feet and lifted him up on the cross. And above his head they placed the written charge in 3 languages which said, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 criminals were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. And whilst the men were in unbelievable agony, 2 of the soldiers standing guard divided Jesus' clothes by casting lots. Some of the many who passed by or stood watching hurled insults at him with words like, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself." Others shouted out to him, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Yet from the cross, Jesus spoke, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." One of the criminals insulted him, but the other rebuked him, saying, "We are punished justly, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then, in an agonized voice he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." To which Jesus answered him, "Truly I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise." Standing near the cross stood his mother. Seeing her, and John the disciple whom he loved next to her, Jesus, looking down at them from the cross, said, "Woman, here is your son." And to John he said, "Here is your mother." And from that time on, John took Mary into his home and cared for her. From noon onward, darkness spread across the land until mid-afternoon. Then Jesus cried out with a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Even in this moment of great suffering, Jesus' words showed that what was happening was part of God's plan, spoken of hundreds of years before. The words were spoken from the scriptures, from Psalm 22, which had foretold the suffering now taking place. It describes rejection, mockery, and the piercing of hands and feet, yet it also expresses trust in God and confidence that His purpose would be fulfilled. Knowing that everything spoken of in the psalm had happened, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." So someone in the watching crowd lifted a sponge of wine vinegar on a stick to his lips, and when he had tasted it, Jesus said, "It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." His suffering was complete, the sacrifice had been made. The work he had come to do was finished, and he surrendered his life in quiet obedience. At that moment, the curtain of the temple, which separated the holy place from the most holy place, where God met with the high priest once a year, was torn in 2 from top to bottom. And at the same time, there was a huge earthquake. The centurion who was supervising the crucifixion, seeing what had happened, said, "Surely he was the Son of God." Many people were there, watching from a distance, in fear of the Romans and being implicated in some way. They stood in silence as the one who had taught, healed, and revealed the ways of God quietly gave his life upon the cross. Though it appeared to be an ending, it was in truth the beginning of God's purpose being fulfilled for all mankind. The cross and the golden thread. Love that gives everything. Jesus did not resist the suffering placed upon him. He willingly gave his life, showing the depth of God's love and the seriousness of sin. The cross reveals a love prepared to sacrifice for others. God's purpose unfolding. What appeared to be defeat was the fulfillment of what had been spoken of in the scriptures. From the casting of lots to the words spoken on the cross, everything took place according to the purpose of God. The innocent for the guilty. Though no fault was found in him, Jesus was condemned in the place of others. Barabbas was released, while Jesus took the sentence. The righteous suffered so that forgiveness could be offered to all who believe. Hearts are revealed at the cross. Some mocked, some watched in silence, some wept, and one thief believed. Even a Roman centurion recognized that something extraordinary had taken place. The cross reveals what people truly believe about Jesus. A way opened to God. When the temple curtain was torn in two, it showed that access to God was being opened. Through the sacrifice of Christ, the barrier caused by sin would not have the final word. If you found this video interesting and would like to explore more, we have several options for you. One is our free, multilingual, Bible-based Christianity course, a free 30-lesson video course covering all aspects of the Bible and daily life. Another is the Bible by Stories, a series of over 50 videos that takes you on a journey from creation to the early church. And if you have questions about Scripture, there is a multilingual chat system on the website where you can ask any question on scriptural issues. To access any of them, simply visit the website listed below. If we don't yet have videos or the course in your language, please email us at the address shown, telling us what you are interested in and your language, and we will do our best to create them for you. God bless you on your walk to His kingdom.